Okay, welcome back to Biblical Theology, Exegesis, and Hermeneutics, where meaning is always context-driven. I'm your host, John Strazicich, and we will be continuing on here in our study in the book of Amos. Okay, and we are currently in this exegetical study here of the prophecy, poetry, and politics of the prophet Amos. And the title of his book is Divrei Amos, according to the superscription. And we will be in chapter 3, so if you have your Bibles, you can go ahead and open them up to there. Okay, then coming along here, we're going to pick up here with Daniel Rodos here out of Wheaton, and we'll let him set the table for us as we come to this next section of the book. This second major section of the book of Amos begins at chapter 3 and goes through chapter 6. These chapters provide much more detail concerning the sin and punishment of Israel. This expanded information is communicated through a variety of literary structures and techniques that differ from the manner of presentation in 2:6-16. And there, he's just referring back to the OAN section, the first 8 oracles that were, they had that stock literary features. It would begin with Ko Amar Adonai, thus says the Lord. Then it would go, Al Shalosha Pishe Yisrael, Ve'arba'a Lo Ashivenu. So that's what what verse 6 would state here in chapter 2. Thus says the Lord, for 3 crimes of Israel, and for 4, Lo Ashivenu, I shall not cause it to return. So he's just saying that, that was the language of the former section. It gives way to some different type of linguistic realities as we move forward. This is clear from certain clues. The opening formula, hear this word in 3:1, and that would be Shim U et Hadavar Hazeh, hear this word. And then the 5-fold sequence of yet you did not return to me, and that would be Velo, Shav Tem Adai Ne'um Adonai, and yet you did not return to me, declares the Lord. And those all occur here in chapter 4, in verses 6-11, and it's definitely they function as refrains to heap guilt upon guilt, and the woes of 5:18 and 6:1, and that's the term hoy. As will become evident in the exposition, structures of various lengths overlap, and smaller literary units are embedded within larger ones. There are also lexical and thematic connections with chapters, 3-6, together between this section and the larger book. They serve to weave an intricate tapestry that that gives this prophetic work a strong sense of cohesion and consistency. So Rodos goes on to say something as I was just covering here, and I thought it was his presentation was good. You may want to go back and reread this and to let it sink in, but definitely once we come to 3:1 following, all of that language from chapters 1 and 2, it has all given away to completely different types of oracles. Okay, then when we come here, I'm just kind of giving you a macro structure view of 3-6 here, and it's typically divided. Chapters 3-4 make a unit, and then 5-6 make a separate unit. So at the macro structural level, I think everyone's on board here. It's in between here, looking at the first unit here, chapters 3-4, how it is divided. You will see that it's it's variously punctuated differently by different authors, especially the first section, and there's good reason for that. I just think that you should, just by reading this yourself, you have to make your own conclusions, and you don't have to be hard and fast. You just have to have an educated way of looking at it. Well, this is my most responsible understanding of this material at this point in time, and you don't have to set anything down in cement. We should rarely do that within biblical studies. We should always be open to nuance, looking for nuance of how to understand the text a little better. We are human. And then the second section here, there's a little more, this section here is a little more cohesive, you could say. But in here, I just wanted to offer this here. And do note that I have seen that there are 7 units here in the first section here. And 7 will become a number for especially for our unit that we'll be covering today in verses 1 to 2 and 3 to 8, the 7 rhetorical questions of cause and effect. And it's just nice to know that it all falls into 7 units as I have understood it. And I have had help. I've definitely leaned upon what Daniel Rodas was doing and Marvin Sweeney. I found them to be very helpful in being able to come to some conclusions about this material. Okay, then moving along here, I wanted to show you this is the Aleppo Codex. And that was pointed by Aaron Ben Asher, and this is dated primarily somewhere around the 920s, 930s of the present era. And it begins, Shim'u et hadavar hazeh asher diber Adonai alechem b'nei Yisrael al kol hamishpacha asher he'eleti me'eretz Mitzrayim lemor rak etchem yadati mikol mishpachot ha'adama al kain efkod alechem et kol avonotechem, and then it stops here, and then we go into the 7 rhetorical questions here, and it begins here, Hayelachu Shanayim Yakdav Bilti'im no adu, and so this would say, shall two walk together unless it has been prearranged. I guess that's how I would understand it. But this is just the call to attention here. Hear this word, that Yahweh has spoken unto you, O sons of Israel, concerning all the family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, and then we start off here, with the actual poetic part, Rak etchem yadati, and that would be the opening words of this particular poem, Rak etchem yadati. Only you have I known, from all of the families of the earth, all Cain here, hidden behind me. Therefore I shall literally visit upon you all of your iniquities. And so we'll have a lot to say to that. I just wanted to show you, we have, a very good text here, in this particular Aleppo Codex, and it's it's always judged to be, the finest, manuscript that we have, dating the earliest, besides the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, and I just wanted to show you from the very same manuscript of the Aleppo Codex, when we look at the Ha'azinu, and you've heard me use this terminology many times because these are the opening words here, okay? Ha'azinu, Hashemayim, Va'adabera, V'tishma, Haaretz, Imre, Fi. So this says, give ear, O heavens, and let me speak, and let the earth hear the words of my mouth. So this is a call to attention. And as it is known amongst the scholarly community, and it begins here with the opening words ha'azino. This means give ear, and then so the heavens are to be a witness, and the earth is to be a witness against Israel. And this is this famous song that Moses taught Israel. It was this literally his swan song, that God gave him there. This is Deuteronomy chapter 32. But this type of, this is, when Amos opens up here with Shimu, right? He's going to open up with this imperative, Shimu. This just is, a call, hear, listen. And this is much of the way, in Deuteronomy, it's bifurcated because it's written poetically. And Amos, the verse 1 here of chapter 3 is written in prose. So it's not given in a didactic. But I just wanted to show you that, this is, most scholars always go back here to, Deuteronomy 32. James Sanders, my former professor, he loved this. We read this so many times in class, not even funny. Okay, then coming then to our text here, and remember we're using John Hobbins' scansion for how to, lay out a particular poetic text. And I taken my liberties here on Cov, and he's just literally doing, this is 1 line, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's just counting each poetic line. And that's what he's going to have in this column. For my audience, I'm just, I'm just using the line here for, distick or whatever, tristick. And so I'm just listing it that way. And then for the smach here, this stands for strophe, and so we have, the strophic divisions here within each unit here. And then we have this here then is then the title of the poem that derives from the opening words, the poetic words. So we have here Rat etkem yadati, Rak etkem yadati, only you have I known. So that's a very very good way of referring to this particular piece of real estate here within Amos in his poetic speech. Rak etkem yadati, only you have I known, and that's how we're going. That's the title I'm going to give it. And then this is Amos. This is Amos, and chapters 3 to 6 here. And then we have Defoe's metry here. This is the metrical pattern here, and so I've delineated this. We have these, like here we have Rak etkem yadati. So there's 1, 2, 3 prosodic words, and then we have Mikol Mishpachot Ha'adamah, and we have another 3. So this is a 3-3, and it's a distick. And then here, Pasuk here, the pay here, then it is the versification where we can find this in Amos 3. So it's 2a. So this is the explanation. And what I did then, 3:1 is up here because it's in prose. it's not written. Verse 1 is not. You'll see in your different Bible translations that 3:1 is not in poetic distichs. So I want you to be aware of that. And so we, that's why the layout was going to look a little different here. And then you can see here, for the strophic, so all of verses 1 to 2 is going to be a unit of it's a call to attention. And that's how it's going to function. And then once we get here to 3 all the way down to 8, and we're going to have these 7 interrogative questions, and then it's going to then be punctuated, here at verse 7 is where it all leads up to, and then we have the didactic moment of, what are all these 7 questions all about, and how is Amos then going to weave this into what he has to say. And so it's all explained here in verses 7 and 8, and it's basically in Amos's apology, his apologia for his prophetic office, for his speech, that he was commissioned by Yahweh. And that's, so this is the justification for that. So that we're going to look at this intently here, but I just wanted to lay out the poetic nature here of the text. Okay, then coming then here to look at some structural analysis of how to understand the text that we're looking at here, and we're looking here. Remember, we're here in this unit here, Amos's prophetic announcements of punishments and paranesis to Israel, and that's my title for chapters 3 to 6. And paranesis is an exhortation and warning that is presented enthusiastically with a little bit of fire underneath it. And it's definitely here also talking about the announcements of punishments, and it begins this way, very obviously. There's paranesis that comes in a little bit later on when we get to it. And then, so the first section here then within all of this is Amos's prophetic announcements of punishment upon Israel. That's chapters 3 and 4. And now we come to our unit for the day, the first unit. This is a call to attention for the abrogation of the covenantal duties. So that's how we would understand, the opening words of verses 1 and 2 when you look at it. It's obviously that Israel is in trouble here, and God is, announcing punishment upon their iniquities, their evil doings, and so it begins with this call to attention. So it begins with the words here. If I look over here at my text, Shimu et hadavar hazeh asher deber Adonai alechem. Hear this word. So when we have here, Shimu et hadavar hazeh, hear this word, and so this is given in the imperative. So it's drawing their attention. He's grabbing their attention. Listen, and then what is he listening to? Well, it's a message. It's called a word of Yahweh. And that is what they are to give attention here. And then the addressees are the sons of Israel, and in apposition, all the family that I brought up, from the land of Egypt, which would also include Judah here. Okay, so in a very, as you read through chapter 3, totally is, Judah is in the background. This is really all about Israel. But I think that the prophet here here is going to, doesn't want to exclude or try to say that he's, he's myopic in some way, that he can't see Israel's sin. He's only going to see the sins of the neighbor. Amos is fully aware of the sin of Judah, and that's why he brought it up back in the OAN, and he brought them up before he brought up the sins of Israel. So that was this is important to see here. And then there's when we come to verse 2, this is then the poetic section here, where it begins with rock etchem, only you, Yadati, have I known from all of the all the families of the earth. So that's the opening opening words of the poem, but it presupposes that there has been some breach of the covenant. This is definitely covenantal language, and so many people are going to say that relationship comes with responsibilities, and not everything's just rosy. Things have to be when things get out of control, things have to be dealt with, and Amos this is Amos is dealing with this, and it's really severe. And what he does then he goes straight into 7 rhetorical questions of cause and effect. So this is really, this is a he has this opening statement, and then he just goes straight into these interrogative, didactic questions. And so what you're left with, you're going, wow, where is this all leading to? It just seems like he's bouncing all around. But it, this is you have to listen to this word. And so I titled this unit of 3 to 8 here, 7 rhetorical questions of cause and effect with didactic basis for Amos's prophecies. So once you come here then to this is the basis of rhetorical questions. It teaches the point of Amos's commission to, and those words there are Amos's commission to prophesy. Okay, and then the basis here, God always declares His secret counsel to prophets. And then it's explained, by a metaphorical, rhetorical question of cause and effect, with an interpretive element here. That's going to then teach the point here of that. If a lion roars, then who can but prophesy? So then Amos is equating that along. This wraps up the rhetorical questions. It all goes back, comes to here. These 7 rhetorical questions then have to be processed through verses 7 and 8. They are the interpretive point of how you to understand how these rhetorical questions work. And all of this then leads out of the call to punish here. Hear this word, right? Only you have I known, from all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will, visit your iniquities upon you. So then, this is the initial announcement of punishment upon the covenant people. This is definitely covenantal language, and that's important to see here. And then we have all these rhetorical questions. We'll get into that. I just wanted to kind of explain the text to you and how you are then to process the very just looking at the first 8 verses. That's all we're going to do here today. Okay, and hopefully I can teach you then how to read the text, and then you can begin to then, begin to use these principles for yourself, and so that you can interpret the Bible yourself. And I'm not, I'm just basically just itemizing, as the text proceeds of what it states, and I want you to then to follow along, and then you can trust, but you need to verify. You need to verify that I'm not playing with the text, and I'm not purposely doing anything here. I'm just very sober. I wouldn't be doing this just for nothing. And this all goes to teach here the authority for Amos to prophesy, and that's the interpretive elements here of that Amos was called to prophesy, and so as all these questions have cause and effect. Well, then when Yahweh speaks, when he roars like a lion, then it's impossible for those prophets who have heard not to speak. Okay, then coming then to this slide, Douglas Stewart has written a very fine commentary here in the Word Biblical Commentary series, and it does contain his comments on Amos, and he states here on Amos 3:1-2, covenant accountability. And I thought that was very important. That he once you read this, the first two verses here, you understand immediately you're talking covenantal language. A short oracle, perhaps delivered by Amos, originally in connection with other oracles, mainly those that follow it, serves as a kind of introduction to the lengthy collection of judgments against Israel in chapters 3-6. And that's really where this is focused. That this short oracle here of, hear this word, Israel, only you have known from, all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will visit all of your iniquities upon you. That's how it opens, and so it's an announcement of punishment with a call to attention. And then he delves in here, whether it's prose or poetry, and then he sees that verse 2 is written in poetic, as a poetic didactic, that he claims has 14 syllables here. But anyhow, and then when it begins here with this all Cain therefore, it's definitely a transition from, from evidence to verdict here in covenant lawsuits. That's what he's saying here here on page 321. So if you have his volume, go ahead and you can look at that. Okay, then to continue on here, we need to hear some words here from Thomas Finley here, and this is dated, but he is just trying to understand. He wants his audience to understand that that chapter 3 following is definitely covenantal language. And so he says, addressing himself to the entire family that he brought up from the land of Egypt, the Lord calls for the punishment of Israel on the basis of her unique election to covenant relationship with him, 3:1-2. One can get a good overall view of the chapter by imagining a courtroom scene where a lawsuit is brought against Israel by the Lord. The opening statement, 3:1-8, includes a summons for Israel to hear the proceedings, the initial call for Israel's punishment, and a justification of the charges based on the authority of the Lord and the prophet as his representative, 3-8. And then there's this summons of foreign nations as witnesses in 3:9 there. and then it's going to include an announcement of judgment against the land and people and the altar at Bethel, and some of their ostentatious living. So Finley here, he's an excellent scholar too, and I really do like Finley, and so these are really fine scholars, and so what I just want to I wanted to show you, Finley here and with Stewart, they're both digesting this material as, this is covenantal language, and they're being judged because they are the chosen people. They were elected. Only you from all the families of the earth have I known. So God, Yahweh has not made himself known to any other nation, and except Israel. That's it. As far as a nation, and they were the stewards of the oracles of God, as Paul states there in Romans 9. Like verses like 4 and 5 or something. It's very important. That you understand that Israel, is not going anywhere. Okay, one day all Israel is going to be saved. That's Paul's point there in chapter 11 of Romans. So, not all of them are going to heaven, but they still are God's people. Okay, not all of God's people are going to heaven. That's just that's the point that Paul's making. There's believers and non-believers. Just like in the church, there's believers and there are people that they're the wheat. There's the wheat and the tares. There's the tares amongst us. Okay, and that's what Matthew taught us in his gospel. That's the unique words of Matthew. Matthew's gospel brings that out loud and clear. The parable of the tares and wheat. So that's unique to Matthew. His Sondersgut. And so for the prophets function in the Old Testament canon is calling out the sins of the nation. So it's no different within the church. We have the same element here amongst us. Okay, then coming then to our text here. So we saw here in this call to attention, we have the actual call Shimu, and it's a call to hear a word here, this word that Yahweh has spoken against them. Okay, and it's the addressees. Here are the sons of Israel, and then apposition all the family that I brought up from the land of Egypt, and then it goes into Lamor saying. So we have Israel here, and then also to read to include Judah as well here. Judah is once you have all the family that I brought up from the land of Egypt, that's going to include Judah as well. But the focus here, as you'll see as we're reading through, it's all about Israel. But in the back mind, just like when you go to chapter 6, you're going to see there that those who are at ease in Zion. So it begins and ends with a reminiscent little faint voice of Judah is still there in the background and needs to be looking here about concerning what's about to happen to the northern tribes, that they're going to be taken away into captivity through the Assyrian monarch, whether it be Sargon II and following, so that's what's about to happen here, and that's what the book is pointing towards, and so remember, Rock etkem yadati, only you have I known, Mikol mishpachot ha'adamah, from all the families of the earth. So definitely this, this all the families of the earth, this is going to jog your mind, your memory back to, Genesis 12. It might be, I believe it's verse 3. In you all the families of the earth will be blessed. And specifically there, God itemized how God would bless Abraham, as obeying him, having come and left Ur the Chaldees and Haran and made it, to Shechem, and then God appears to him, and then that he's going to experience all these blessings. God's going to make him a great nation, and and in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. Well, that's looking at the covenant from a positive point of view, because that's what we should. But if there is, covenant, rebellion and apostasy, well, then that's what this text's all about. With relationship comes responsibilities. Okay, this is akin to a divorce. Okay, and that's what Hosea was about, right? There was a great divorce because some partner didn't want to stay loyal to the spouse, and so the covenant between a man and his wife is being pictured there in the book of Hosea as how Yahweh is related to us. If we walk in rebellion and apostasy, well, just go ahead and read the book of Hebrews in the New Testament. It's all about that. Apostates, those who turn away from God, it's not very it's not a very happy scene there, and I'm not going to distort the words of the book of Hebrews. It states very plainly, it's very clear. There he leaves no element to try to twist, Scripture. Don't Scripture twist the book of Hebrews, okay? Because it's just going to read just like these prophets here, because with to whom much is given, much is required, so that's the reason for the great punishment. The great punishment is because you were given a treasure, and so you're going to be judged way more harder than somebody else. So and so therefore it says, F code, okay, I shall visit upon you, kol avonotechem, all of your iniquities. All right. Now we're going to drop down here in verses 3 through 6, and there's 7 rhetorical questions here. Shall two walk together except they have made an agreement, okay, or they have made an appointment, or they have, they have come into they have made an agreement, and so here, we need to read this. Who are the covenant people walking with God? It's supposed to be Israel. All right, so shall two walk together except they are in agreement, or they have made an arrangement. Okay, well, what's happened to this arrangement? What's happened to this agreement is that it's become nullified. They're no longer walking together. Now, I don't think you need to be reading Amos too much into this. I think that coming off of verse 2. The relationship only you have I known. Okay, so that's clearly declaring that they were, they were together. Okay, and so when it says here, only you have I known, so this is God may have brought them out of the land of Egypt. He's bringing up the language here. In verse 1, from the Exodus event, this is the most repeated thing. Isaiah constantly is, God who brought them out of the land of Egypt. So this was their act of deliverance when they became, united. Yahweh revealed himself at Mount Sinai and made the covenant, all the 10 plagues and, everything that God displayed. And then, wrote the covenant. That was the event at Mount Sinai, the 10 words. And it was all codified upon the plates that God wrote, and etched them in stone and gave them to Moses, and they were put in the Ark of Testimony. Okay, and the Ark of Testimony is actually where this word, Ya'ad here, where we get moed from, and where we, this is no adu. This is the nifal. This is a, preformative noon here from the stem nifal, which is reflexive in nature here. That except, shall two men walk together except they have made an agreement. They have made an arrangement. They have made a point, a timely point here. And this is where we get the Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting, where Yahweh meets. Okay, and this is all, covenantal language. Okay. And so obviously, two men are not going to walk together if they're not in agreement, and that's the whole point. They're not walking together. They're not in agreement. There's a huge disconnect here. Somebody's wandered off from the path. Somebody's not walking. Who left? Okay, so you're looking back and you're saying, well, who took? Who took a divergent turn? Well, that was, we can see all that happening with Rehoboam and Jeroboam. Jeroboam, the first, the son of Nebat, when he chose to make, these altars in Bethel and Dan, and that's what this whole book is about. It's about the Bethel cult and the perversion, and so they were supposed to, at the split at Solomon, they were still to go to the south and pay homage and pilgrimage to Jerusalem, even though that Judah was separated. There were two clans now, the north and south, and Jeroboam didn't want to have anything to do with it, and that's where he caused Israel to sin. And it says that constantly. That's the Deuteronomistic, point that's made, in the history, from Joshua all the way to 2 Kings. So this is very, very important here, that we understand how, this rhetorical question, shall two walk together except by agreement? Well, don't read into this Amos and Yahweh. I mean, I would read into this, well, this was supposed to be the relationship that Israel was, that they originally did have, but something's happened. And that's why, therefore, I will visit, all Cain, F code, Alechem, Eight Kol Avonotechem, all right? Therefore, I will visit upon you all of your iniquities, okay? So that's what this whole thing is about. So somebody left, walking together, and that was Israel. Now we go into another question. Shall a lion roar in the forest and it not have prey? And then there's another parallel line. Shall a young lion lift up his voice, or lift up his voice from his his den, except he has captured? And we'll say something here. So then these two lines here are, they're not parallel within themselves, but between themselves. Okay, and I'll let me go back here and jump in to our next point. I just wanted to remind you. I like to just keep bringing up different authors here as we go through to remind you. And here we're looking at Norman Gottwald. The fundamental formal feature of canonical poetry is the correspondence of thought in successive half-lines, known as parallelism of members. Parallelismus membrorum. The thought may be repeated, contrasted, or advanced. It may be figurative or inverted. Parallelism may be both within lines and between lines. So remember here that he's saying that parallelism may be not within lines, but between lines. Okay, so that's what we were looking at there when we came to the lion and when we come to the bird. The two questions about the lion's roaring, and then the two questions about the bird and the trap. Those are parallel between the two lines. So that's important. How to understand this and look at this, and this Norman Gottwald really nailed it when he gave us his way of capturing the fundamental formal feature of canonical poetry is the correspondence of thought in successive half-lines, known as parallelism of members. So it's looking at parallelism. That's the main, one of the main, points about poetry is the parallel thoughts, and that they may be repeated, contrasted, advanced, and they may be figurative or inverted. Okay, they may be stair-step. Okay, parallelism may be within lines and between lines. So these are all very important things here that we need to remember. Okay, so I brought that up here then, because now we're looking here at verse 4. All right, so the first question was here in verse 3. And then in 4, we're going to have our second and third rhetorical question. And then we're going to have our fourth here. We're going to have 2 about birds and traps here in verse 5. Okay. And then we're going to have, we're going to have 2 here about, about cities. Okay. We have 6 and 7 here. And when there is trouble about to, befall a city. So there's 7 rhetorical questions, and remember this number 7. Remember from last time. This is a very key point for Amos. And then when we come here to verse 7, notice that it's a tristic, and so this may they can serve as framing. It goes from so we had one strophe here from 3 to 6, and then definitely 7 and 8 is going to be a second strophe here. That's that we need to look at. So but 7 becomes then the didactic interpretive moment here, and the point is very made clear here in verse 7. This is the point. For the Lord Yahweh, or Jehovah, does nothing except he reveal his sodo, his counsel, to his servants, the prophets. Okay, that's the point. And then that point then is then made clear through a line of poetry again, a metaphor, a lion. What does it say here? A lion has roared. Who shall not fear? Yahweh has spoken. Who shall not prophesy? So that's the key interpretive element here. 7 tells you what it's all about. Yahweh does nothing except he reveal his counsel to his prophets. then he's telling you that, how is it that you are hearing God's voice? Well, it's just as simple as when a lion roars, who doesn't fear? Okay, Yahweh has spoken. Who will not prophesy? Okay, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Okay, so this is also, all of this language here, the lions roaring, lifting up their voice, okay, then being repeated down here in 8, goes back to the motto. Statement that that Yahweh roars from Zion. He lifts up his voice from Jerusalem. Okay, and because of that, the pastures of the shepherds mourn, and the top of Carmel is withered. Okay, so this is all all of that language there in the motto is coming home to roost here. Definitely, a lion roars in the forest. Shall a lion roar in the forest and it has no prey? Shall a young lion lift up his voice? So there you go. You got roaring and lifting up the voice. Okay, shall a young lion lift up his voice from his den, and he is, except he has captured something. Okay, that's the point. And note here, there's seven of these questions, and then it all leads up here to this didactic moment here, that Yahweh does nothing. And notice here that key, some of your translations, a lot of them are going to say surely, and that's fine. But if you have to maintain this use of key. It doesn't lose the basis to it. And you'll see even in the ESV they translated this for, and I think that you need to understand that it's not one or the other. This use of key here is just it's, they call it it's to denote that something is unquestionably true, and the statement that is made is absolutely true, and it is, but it is a basis statement. It's the basis for how do you understand all these questions. Okay, so that's why I'm retaining this as key. I'm translating it for, but for sure. But if you want to say for surely, that would probably be a good way of understanding this here. For surely Yahweh does nothing except He reveals His counsel to His servants, the prophets. And you'll note that Amos is not going to be the only prophet here in the 8th century. There's others, that will follow with Micah and Hosea and Isaiah, just to name a few here. So this is important. The 7 rhetorical questions of cause and effect with this didactic basis for Amos's prophecies. Okay, it is these questions here then lead up here then a lion has roared, who shall not fear? Yahweh has spoken, right? The Lord Yahweh has spoken, who shall not prophesy? So then that's Amos's apologetic for bringing forth his oracles of judgment. And he's used the lion metaphor because it's terrifying, because the message that Yahweh has given to him is surely terrifying, because the nation is at their this is their last point. If they don't get it now, they're gone. Okay, and I do want to look at this, the 2 questions here about the bird being captured by the trap. Okay, then coming then here then to verse 5 here, we'll look at the 2 rhetorical questions here. And remember, it's parallelism not within the line, but between the lines here. as Gottwald had stated here. And the first verset of the first distic here, Hatipol Zippor al Pak Haaretz. And then, Umokesh ein la. Shall a bird fall upon a trap of the ground, and there is no bait for it? Shall a trap, and we'll say shall a trap spring up from the ground, and it has not taken anything, or it has not captured anything? So, all these rhetorical questions, are saying no here. So a bird does not fall upon a trap of the ground unless there's bait, okay? And a trap of the ground doesn't snap or ensnare something unless it's captured something. And I can show you something here. We'll look here at what Shalom Paul has stated, but I can show you from life's experience. Okay, what I wanted to show you here is that I'm here with my brother-in-law Tim Weeks and I. We were falconers, and we had just caught this red-tailed hawk, not by design, actually by accident. We were trapping an immature bird, but this is a trap right here. Okay, now this bird didn't come down upon this trap. It says, shall a bird, come upon, fall upon a trap, except there's no bait for it. Okay, well, because we had pigeons in here, and then on top of this trap, there's all these snares. There are these little snares made out of fishing line that are, making these little circles on the trap to. You can't really see the fishing line, but there's snares. So the bird will see the pigeons and a rat in a trap. They'll come down. They'll try to kill them and get them, and their foot will go on the trap. The birds and the rat will move around in the trap from side to side, and so the red-tailed foot's going to race across the trap and try to grab the bird, and its feet get ensnared in the snares of the trap. Okay, and so this haggard, I think it's a tiercel here. He was about almost a third of a mile away. He was super far. I thought for sure this guy would come down. We were looking for the first year bird, because Tim Booher, this Tim Booher and this Chuck Booher, these are they're pastors there in California at Crossroads at the time here, and so Tim was getting his license to become a falconer, and so I had taken him under the wing, so to speak. Okay, and so we were trapping for this bird, and this other guy came down, but it's all done through a trap with bait and snares. Okay, so and believe me, a bird doesn't come down upon a trap unless there's bait. Okay, so here's then this red tail that we caught here, and you could tell that it was it was in fear, of course, but we let the bird go, and we ended up getting another bird for Tim another day. But his dad wanted to come out and see this and how we were to catch the bird and all that. But it takes a trap and it takes bait. Okay, then coming back here, Shalom Paul basically, he's a very good biblical scholar, and he wrote the volume here for Hermania. And he's just, advocating the way that we have interpreted the text, that here mokesh is to be understood as bait, and you can read this slide here, but he gives a very excellent interpretation as is just understood by fowlers. It's understood by falconers even today. Okay, so I just wanted to wrap things up here, and the rhetorical questions that we would look at, the lions roaring unless they have prey. So those that is to basically capture the idea that Yahweh is the lion. That's the motto. Yahweh roaring. Okay, and when he's roaring, whatever is going to happen, it had already happened. Okay, so Israel was basically, they were done for. They were already been captured and doomed, and the punishment was incoming. And so the two rhetorical questions about the lion roaring, except they have prey. Okay, and then the birds, and the trap, so Yahweh, basically, is the fowler. He's the one trapping the bird, and he's he's lured them with bait to trap them. And lead me not into temptation, right? Well, when Yahweh leads you into temptation, you're in big trouble. Okay, and so when God has a demise for people that are in rebellion, and remember, He told Micaiah ben Imlah, well, how are we going to kill Ahab? Who's going to we gotta, we let's have some ideas. And then it said the Spirit came forward, Ha Ruach, okay, and said, I'm going to go and be a deceiving spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And so he goes, well, go, succeed. You're going to succeed. Go and do it and kill him. So they plotted how to kill Ahab. So God plots with His angels, and yes, the Holy Spirit in heaven, how to bring about the fall of men upon the earth. With 8 billion people, there's probably a lot of hits being taken out every day on some very, very evil, wicked people. Okay, and when you're ensnared by God, you ain't getting away. I'm sorry. So Amos used this as a teaching point here that a lion has roared. Who can but prophesy, right? And then he had the two questions about the cities. Okay, that if a trumpet is blown in the city, aren't the people terrified, right? They're panic stricken, and if there's evil in a city, has not Yahweh done it? So when we're looking at this, obviously it's being tailor made. You got to understand that it's being tailor made in this situation for what's about to befall Samaria. So that's how you're to interpret this. And Yahweh's bringing this all upon him. And He's the one orchestrating how it's all being done and who's going to do what to bring them down. And we saw, even from the last, time, the last part about the OAN, the 7 ways in which Israel's, soldiers are going to fall. There were 7 ways. So likewise, there are 7 rhetorical questions. And it's about, the demise of Israel and how God is going to punish an apostate nation. Okay, and then we'll sum up, our discussion for today on the nature of Hebrew parallelism. The device known as semantic parallelism sets up a colometric system of correspondences where unity and diversity, homogeneity and heterogeneity, thesis and antithesis, parity and disparity, congruence and incongruence, are locked up into a dialogical correspondence and conversation of meaning. Herder says that 2 parallel members strengthen, heighten, and empower each other. Alter also says What this and all conceptions of biblical parallelism as synonymity assume is a considerable degree of stasis within the poetic line. This stasis anchors the correspondence between the two lines. The purpose of the second verset is to have both elements that conjoin and disjoin, so that the correspondence of the two parallel members strengthen, heighten, and empower each other by means of both unity and diversity. The perception of diversity in the context of unity is important in parallelism. The purpose of parallelism, like the general purpose of imagery, is to superimpose an object of perception onto another sphere, so that a new picture emerges, a new form, a new gestalt, which is greater than the sum of its parts. The interpretive nature of parallelism, then, is patently heuristic. It is left up to the audience to read between the poetic lines in order to discern the canvas, in order to discern between the lines, the canvas, its gestalt, its form, its meaning. This meaning of interpretation is entirely intentional by the author on the very basis of poetry's literary basis.